You guys don't even know each other really, so this will be
good for all
kind
of
of
you.
see who everybody is. But um, we are Sing for Your Lives. This just goes automatically. You can visit our website to learn more about what we do. I think I can click and it'll just go. This is what we're doing today. Why do you sing? So, mezzo-soprano Hilary Ginther was profiled by Opera Now magazine in 2016 as one of 10 young American singers intent on taking the opera world by storm. She's done lots of cool stuff, as you can apparently not read
There it
quickly
is.
enough there.
Andrew Diessner lives in oh my gosh, Las Vegas. I couldn't think of the name of the city, and sings all of the things extraordinarily well, and also does lots of cruise ship work. And we are so excited to have you.
So excited to be here.
Oh man, Andrews is like lingering. And Sidonie Smith lives in Germany and performs all over Germany, Austria, Switzerland, in Broadway and music theater. Fabulous to have you all. It'll keep cycling through those.
All right. So we've known all three of these folks for quite some time now. Andrew went to school with us at Colorado State University way back in the day, and we've been friends and stayed in touch ever since. Hilary Ginther, we met Hilary Ginther at while performing Magic Flute in Rome.
2008.
2008. Good long time ago.
Man.
And then, and she literally has taken the opera world by storm since then. It's been amazing to see everything she's done.
We didn't put this on there. And Hill, I don't even know if you know this, but every single time one of us works with a new cast, every single person knows you. You're like, we always joke that it's like 6 degrees of separation from Hilary Ginther in the opera world.
In the opera world, it's so small. It's like 1 degree. Every gig I go on, I either know somebody or like you get there and you know like everybody in common. So yeah. Oh, that's so great. Yeah. It's such a small, lovely world.
Like,
I know, it's awesome.
It's always Hill. It's like, oh, hey, I saw on Facebook, you know Hilary Ginther. How do you know her? Every
I've been getting around over the years.
And then in Sidonie, we did a training program in Germany in 2012.
Yep.
And Sidonie she was an alumnus of the program and was coming back as a faculty member at that point, and has been tearing it up over in Europe as a performer and civil rights advocate, really. And I just learned also that she's a composer, which I had no idea about. But that's super cool.
I didn't know that either, Sid.
Yeah, if we travel back in time, that is definitely true.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Cool. So, so we've got a few more folks online, which is awesome. I'm going to take just a few moments and do another thing here. Yeah. Where is my mouse? Here we are. All right. Bada bing. Bada boom. Uh-oh. Make this full screen, and we will get that to go away. Okay, so briefly, so what is Sing for Your Lives? Sing for Your Lives is this group, is a organization that we have put together. We do a unique series of workshops and master classes that focuses on freeing your voice, transforming yourself, connecting your community, and all together, when we come together in a shared purpose, we aim to heal the world through singing. So how do we free your voice?
We deal with freeing your voice through holistic vocal technique, through bodily awareness, which I think is so crucial, through a mind, body, heart, soul connection that is deeper than just understanding how your body functions while you sing, through self-alignment with both your bodily posture and with your purpose in life, and through finding your own true voice.
Transforming yourself is a huge part of this whole process. So we bring about life lessons that are disguised as voice lessons, and we found many parallels between the two, such as one of the big ones that we talk about all the time, and my students get so sick of, is called relinquish control to gain control, as just an example. But we also go through a lot of the science behind what happens when we sing and when we listen to singers. There are biochemical changes that occur in your body when you sing and when you experience music. Your parasympathetic nervous system is stimulated, which calms your mind and your body. And a big part of learning how to sing is learning how to recognize and shift unconscious habits that we have in our bodies. And there are such easy parallels to how we live our lives that way too.
We deal with connecting your community. We deal with how music builds empathy and compassion in the world, and how cardioenergetics, how our hearts emanate different vibrations that we call soul resonance. This is how our emotions are encoded into our voices.
Some really cool stuff.
Really, really fascinating stuff. We deal with psychoacoustics, which is the study of the perception of sound, how our bodies are changed by sound. And through creating connections and dissolving divisions with our audience and with our colleagues.
Mm-hmm. And so again, as we all endeavor to do this, if enough people are working towards this same thing of creating connections and dissolving divisions, we quite literally are singing to heal the world. And right now, I think anybody can probably agree that that's needed right now more than ever. And so if you want to learn more about what we do, what we offer, go ahead and visit the website, check it out. We're offering workshops right now. We have several upcoming workshops with different schools, but we are able to schedule and book all kinds of different things as we go through this semester. So let's dive into our conversation here. So welcome to our guests. We're going to just start right off the bat with, why do you sing? So let's go with Sidonie, since you're up on our screen.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you sing?
Hi. Oh man, I felt compelled to. I grew up an instrumentalist, like you said. I'm a composer, I'm a violist. I went to college on a viola scholarship and had no intention of ever singing a note. Always admired singers, but the same way I admired ballet dancers. And so I didn't think I was headed in that direction, but it really, I describe it as if a light went on. I just had to try. And I was already a senior, and it made no sense because, you know, as far as anyone was concerned, and as far as I was concerned, I couldn't sing. I'd spent years, 6 hours a day in a practice room with a viola. And now I was like, I would like to master this other instrument that I have not bothered to deal with before. But I felt compelled to sing. And if that is a biochemical thing, if it's a spiritual thing, I probably all of the above. But I simply had to. And I wasn't sure if it would mean a career or anything marketable. But I kind of just followed that leading that I needed to try it.
I love that. I love that. Was there ever, so Sid is also like a big life coach and a huge encourager of artists and just every person. Like, she's just amazing. Was there ever a moment for you of fear? And I'm curious about whether or not fear ever getting in your path sort of helped you to find yourself as a life coach as well. I mean, you are so inspiring. I love everything you say.
Thank you. I tell you, singing has taught me to operate in fearlessness. I won't claim that I'm completely fearless, but I know that I can be, and I've seen glimpses of that. And it has often come in the practice room or in the lesson or on stage doing something that terrifies me in front of people. I love how we can even just step back and be objective observers of how fear is kind of dissipating in our lives and not manifesting through the voice anymore. It's such a great day when you're like, that used to terrify me, which like just closed my whole body off. And now the things I sing in the shower, I can sing in the practice room, I can sing in the lesson, and I can sing for 1,000 people. That is really, that's joy. That's joy to me, because I can, as the, in my body and as the observer of my life, sometimes I really can see how I can operate in fearlessness, which of course translates to other areas of my life.
I love it. There are two things that you just said that just sparked things. One of the things that I thought of immediately when you started talking about that was one of the lessons that we talk about is, like, you're always going to have fear. It's not that fear is ever going to stop coming into your life. It's just whether you choose to feed the fear or feed the growth, because we all have the choice of, like, allowing the fear to get in our path and sort of stop us from whatever it is that we're doing, but that's just not what it is. And then the other thing that I think is so important, that I feel like many pedagogues lose sight of, certainly many singers lose sight of, is that you talked about your body closing off because of fear when you're singing. And so much of singing and technique is a technical, or is not technical, but it's emotional, it's psychological. Our bodies react physically to these fear responses that we have. And a lot of what we deal with is why those fear responses exist.
Rather than just a mechanical process. Yeah. Your body is not just a machine, although we try to treat it that way a lot of times. But that emotional component has such huge and immediate and noticeable effects when you address it as part of the process, and instead of just trying to treat your body as something that mechanically works this way and only this way.
Yeah, totally.
I completely agree.
Hilary, I love it. Hilary, what is your answer to that question? Why do you sing?
I feel like I've just always sung. I was thinking about this question and I was like, I started singing when I was in elementary school. I was raised in like a Catholic family, and it was like the school was part of the church and all this stuff. And so some of my friends were in the choir, the children's choir. And I was literally just like, I want to do what my friends do. So I joined the choir, but then all of a sudden people started looking at me like, why do you sound like that? I guess I sounded like an opera singer when I was 12 or something. And so it was like this mix of people being like, oh my gosh, this is great. And like the kids being like, your voice is shaking. That's weird. And, but through that experience, one of the first songs I sang in public was for my church full of the parishioners singing Ave Maria in Latin. And so I kind of just fell into the classical vein by default, but it's also exactly what my voice loves to do. I discovered that I wanted to sing forever I'm just a nerd. I loved the challenge of it. I still love the challenge of it. I love the challenge of the language. I love the challenge of knowing the history and the styles. I love to live my life on that edge of this is scary, but it's really exciting. I actually, when Sid was talking a minute ago, she reminded me of this quote that I literally just wrote on my I have a blackboard up on my desk wall. And it's a quote that a friend reminded me of yesterday, that it says, life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. And Anais Nin said that.
Oh.
And
oh my God.
Yeah, right? Have you ever, when you're challenged with something that sparks that fear in you, that's like, oh my gosh, can I do this? And, there are a few things, the last role I did, the Tchaikovsky's Joan of Arc, most terrifying thing I've ever had to prepare for in my life, because it was so massive. And so many people had questioned if I could physically do it, because the people who had done it before were like Dolores Zajic, just these massive voices. And I was like, I know my voice. I know I was cast in that, why I was cast in this, and I know that I can do it. And by getting the mix of the challenge of all the work that I had to put in over a year and a half to prepare for it, and the mix of that and the fear, when it came together, and my preparedness was what made me consistent every day. That's when I was like, this is why I do this. This is that feeling of all of the hard work paying off. I'm sitting there, my body was covered in bruises. I was literally like fighting with like a steel broadsword, fighting men. Like our fight choreographer was the guy that does the Marvel movies. And I was just, it was the most challenging. I do this whole fight scene and then sing a couple of B flats, you know, just like huge things that I didn't know I could do. And it was never perfect, but damn it, it was good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that, those moments are why I do it for me. And then when you talk to people that you're doing it with, like the chorus that I performed with for Joan of Arc, like they were a special chorus. And they were also the second biggest role in the show. And when they told me how much it meant to them, I was like, and when audience members come up to you afterwards and tell you why it changed them, or why just even feeling that in the space and in the audience brings so much joy. I mean, it's a gift. It's a gift to us because it feels physically good when we sing. Those vibrations will cause like a lot of endorphins. And it also, it's when you can take the focus off yourself and just dive into why you're doing it and what your character wants and all that, it just goes straight to the audience and it just goes, that's why.
Yep. Totally. Love it. Love it. Andrew, why do you sing, buddy?
Why do I sing? You know what? It was such an interesting question to sit with because I don't think we ever really think about why. I think we just know that we do, and it's just kind of so connected to us. But one thing that my story is very similar to Sid's. I actually was a bass player, and I grew up playing bass, and I was on scholarship at college for playing bass. And then I was an education major at the time, so we were put into a vocal techniques course, and we were paired up individually with vocal pedagogy students who were voice majors, and we had private lessons once a week with these people. And that's when I met John Lindsay. And he would give me lessons, and he would just open up his mouth and sing these exercises. And I was like, what is happening in this room? This voice was so big and the sound was so controlled, and it was just so amazing. And there's something about the voice that hits you a little differently because I think it's just a part of us. Maybe that's the difference. Like, it's not an instrument that is external. It's not, I think that feeling that you get from a voice is just so much different. And in that class, that's when I knew, I'd always kind of been sick of being in the pit playing bass, and I really wanted to be on stage. I don't know if it was an ego thing or what when I was younger, but I was just kind of sick of being hidden, and I wanted to be on stage having fun. And so that was my moment to be like, you know what, if I'm going to try this, it's now, And so I had lots of talks with John about it, and he was like, you know what, I think that you can do this, and I think you should. So, that was kind of the beginning of it. And it was amazing because living in that fear that kept me from going in that direction for so long was just something that you eventually had to cast out. Luckily I have very supportive parents that, have always believed in me no matter which direction I take with music. And I remember sitting in a master class with Chuck Taylor, and he said, if you guys can see yourselves doing anything else other than singing opera or singing music or doing music at all, then you should go do that. And you should just forget about this. And that will stick with me forever. I think that was probably some of the best advice, because I realized in that moment, like, this is more exciting than anything else I've ever done. It's always changing. There's always new directions to go. There's always things to explore. And especially being an instrumentalist, it opened up a lot of doors to be really versatile. I loved singing opera, but I had to realize at one point, not only do I love singing so many other genres, but I was never going to be at the level that I really wanted to be at singing opera. And it was just something that I was like, well, I can use this as a tool, and I can take this and I can go further in multiple directions with it instead of leaving it behind. Like, training classically was the best thing I could have done, because I learned how to be so in control and in tune with my body, which is the most important thing, right? And, sometimes I think it's easy for people to forget about how they're just singing, but they're not using their entire self to sing. They just think it's like coming from here, So I think that singing, with it being so much a part of you, that's why I sing, because it's who I am. It's it's coming from places in here, but it's everything else. When you're grounded and you're in that moment and you're on stage and people are just watching you and they can't take their eyes off of you, is like the most amazing feeling on the planet, because we are doing something inside of them that they can't reach on their own. They can't, things that they're not dealing with in their life or whatever, they can't help it when a melody hits them a certain way, or the tone of your voice, or the way you use your voice. And I think that pulling that out of people is so important. You know, how boring would anything be without music? It's crazy. It just wouldn't be.
It wouldn't work. Yeah, I mean, so I ask this question to my students every year, and whenever I go and work with different high schools or different groups, this is the first question I always ask, because I think it is something, like you said, it's something that gets overlooked. We just don't think about it really, and this all sort of stemmed from, you know, I always knew that I wanted to be a performer of some kind. When I was 18, I was looking at college. I wanted to be a rock star, and I didn't know what else to do. And I told my parents that. I said, that's what I want to do. I mean, I'll go to college, sure, but I want to be a rock star. And they said, why? And I didn't have a really good answer. It's like, I just knew that I wanted to, but I didn't know what to say to that. And I've been sort of searching for that ever since. I discovered opera, and then that was like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. I want to do that instead. And it's been sort of this ongoing journey for both of us to kind of to figure out, why is what we do as singers and as musicians and broadly as artists, why is that important? You know, why is it important not just for us and making ourselves feel good, but why is that crucial to the world? Why is this essential for us as human beings and for our culture, for our society? And you know, what does that all get into? And so we really have dived into this journey of doing a lot of research to find out what happens physiologically, scientifically when we sing, and psychologically, emotionally. What's going on inside our own bodies when we sing? But then also, how does that affect other people?
Because we all have experienced, I mean, one of the questions that we'll get to is, what is a performance experience of, like, a performance that you saw that was transformative? And as audience members, I think the reason that all of us are in this discussion right now is because at some point we felt transformed by music. We felt transformed by something that we witnessed. Whether we started in bass or in viola, or what, you know, whether we, like, I was 7 when I was like, I want to be an opera singer, and I never changed. There was never a moment that I questioned that. That was what I wanted to do, and that was what I was going to do, and that was what my body was designed to do, and that has been my passion since I was the age of our oldest kid, which is crazy because he's so little.
And he sounds like an opera singer already.
He totally does. He has more resonance at 5 a.m. than I even want to discuss with you guys. It's so loud.
So, well, let's get right to that question. Sidonie, what is a performance that you have attended, that, you know, something that you saw that you felt transformed by?
Okay. Just picking one. Okay, I'm making a decision.
It's so hard.
I'm gonna go with the first Broadway show I ever saw was Aida. If my mom's on, she said she's gonna come on. We were in New York. It was my senior year, and this was my present to go to New York. And neither one of us had an eye on Broadway. We had no idea, but there was a poster with a black girl on it, and she's like, "Let's see Aida," and I was like, "Let's see Aida." I thought, you know, it should be good. And we got 20 euro orchestra seats. And of course, this is the rock opera. This is the Elton John, Tim Rice version of Aida. And I went in there, and for 20 bucks, I watched a lanky Caribbean girl, I'm gonna cry, not be, like Hilary, you said, it wasn't perfect, but damn it, it was good. She was just so electric, and I feel like it was a masterclass in storytelling that I didn't know I needed. And I was a violist. I hadn't even left for college to go study viola. You know, I had no intention of singing a song, but I was precisely that. whatever, fill in the gap. I was absolutely done. Ich war fertig. Ich konnte nicht mehr. I was just changed. I have, I'm going to cheat and also say I've always loved children's television. That's always really spoken to me. And I am a Sesame Street lover. I have wanted to be on the show since I was 4.5, and maybe it'll still happen for me, who knows. But just the idea of using music to teach really changed me, and using singing to teach it. It's never gotten old, and I'm 37, and I would sit down and watch an episode and wish to be with the Muppets singing about the alphabet just the same today. So I guess that's not one performance, that's a long-standing series. But that performance of Aida in 2001 changed me.
I am gonna get real emotional saying this, but Sid, I want to just say that every single time you stand on the stage, you teach every Black girl in that audience that they can do what you're doing. So I couldn't hold that back. And to the point that Hill made and that Sid, you're echoing, oh man, we are all getting weepy all up in here.
I know, but like the Kamala stuff just happened too, and so it's all very fresh and amazing. Oh
my gosh. Oh my gosh. The point that Hilary made about it wasn't perfect, but it was damn good. You guys, that's exactly it, because we're not supposed to be perfect. Because the second we're perfect, we stop being authentic, we stop being human, and then our audience can't connect. It's not about perfection, it's about honesty, it's about authenticity, it's about being fully who you are in that moment, being fully empathetic with your character and becoming, not acting. Like we say that we're actors, we're not actors, we're becomers. Like if we don't become, experience every moment of emotion, everything that happens in that show, in that moment, in real time as it's unfolding, then our audience can't come in, they can't be part of it.
Yeah, and so one of the, like we talked about, relinquish control to gain control is one of the big things. The other huge one we always talk about is it's called connection over perfection. And perfection doesn't exist in music. There is no such thing. It's like this goal. It's a mirage. It's a goal that doesn't actually have any basis in reality.
Yeah. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Exactly, because it's art. It's not supposed to be one specific thing. The perfection comes in how well you communicate that emotional content. And when you are so plugged into that emotion, when you are not worried about hitting every single note exactly right and doing everything exactly perfectly as it is on the page, but you are emoting and you are communicating, you are portraying a human condition, then what we found, which is so cool, like the science shows there's actually this electromagnetic field that your heart emits that encodes that emotional information in it, and that is perceivable by other people's nervous systems. So we actually are picking up, when we talk about feeling somebody's vibrations, it's not just like this hippie woo-woo thing.
Yeah.
That's actually scientifically shown that happens. We send these vibrations out that people pick up on. And when we sing, we're resonating both our sound and our emotions at people, and it's hitting them this like double whammy kind of a thing. And that's how we get that transformative experience when we see somebody doing that. When we experience somebody live giving us that, we leave a totally different person. And like I went to go see Aida actually at the Arvada Center, which Andrew used to sing at, and I had the same experience. Like this, I've never experienced anything like this show. This is incredible. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And I've got countless stories of all these different shows where we could talk about being transformed at. But that's why we do it. I mean, I think that's why I sing, is because I want to be that for somebody else.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Do you have a show that you have performed, or a performance that you've given that felt transformative to you or transformative to someone beyond you?
I'm gonna go with Sweeney Todd, because I love that piece. It's one of my favorites, and because I was so unconventionally cast.
You were Joanna.
Yeah, I sang Joanna, and I have you know, I'm not an opera singer because that's not what they write my checks to do, but I have always, always put classical singing first. And it's a blessing, you know, but I'm called upon, I almost always, look at my resume, I play a lot of divas that want to become like divas, like girls who wish they could hit the big stage, you know, like Sister Acts and the, you know, Bodyguards and these things. And I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it. But my heart wants to be considered for these lyrical classical soprano roles. And first of all, because that's where I found freedom in every color in my voice, was training that way. And secondly, because it breaks barriers. You know, secondly, because I want to be Mary Poppins and also Whitney Houston. Like why not? This version of Sweeney Todd, you might have seen, it was in London, it was also in New York, but this is the version without orchestra, and the cast is the orchestra. And so it was just all of my worlds combined. I played the whole Sondheim score by memory. I'm a big nerd, and I had my viola, and I got to act with my viola, and I even played the harp poorly. It's one of those things that I, you know, they really wanted to conceptualize that into, you know, the whole Joanna, you know, guitar cage sort of a feel. So I learned to play a couple chords on the harp, which was really exciting too. But that was just a moment where it was a moment of possibility, because I didn't go looking for that role. It came to me. And for me, it first of all highlighted where I wasn't dreaming big enough, because I know I want to be considered for these kinds of things. But I was dead shocked when I got an email to play a blonde 16-year-old. And of course, you know, I was terrible at negotiating, because I was like, yes, say yes, tell them yes, tell them I want to do it. I'm about to do it. They're like, no, we have to negotiate. But that changed me. It reminded me to keep dreaming like that. It's not crazy. It's not that crazy that someone who sings a lot of diva roles will be seen for the other things, you know, for the other things that she loves to do and can do and wants to do. Because that's representation too, you know? And it was, of course, super beautiful to have my worlds collide like that, and be a Black Joanna playing a viola, because how random and wonderful is that altogether?
Oh, it's just beautiful. I love
That's
it
amazing.
so much. Oh my gosh. All right, Hilary, let's open the floor to you. Tell me about a performance that you've witnessed that felt transformative, and then one that you've been a part of.
Well, I feel like Sid and I had a lot of the same experiences, because when I was in governor school when I was 14, I got to take a trip to New York and saw Aida, the Elton John, Tim Rice, and it was like my first New York Broadway experience, and I was just like slayed. So when she said that, I was like, oh, I've seen that. Yes, I remember that experience. And I also saw the Sweeney Todd on Broadway with Patti LuPone and Michael Cerveris, where they played all their instruments. And that was like another thing where I was like, so anyway, yes, we have a lot of the same experiences, and I cannot believe you did that, Joanna. I'm so just thrilled for you. I bet that was amazing. I wanted to pick some of my own though. So a couple of I'm gonna pick one. My one that I remembered when I was thinking about this question was, I lived in New York for 8 years. We just moved to Denver this summer. And
8 years?
Yeah, I moved there in 2012, right after I graduated from Cincinnati. And so living in New York was like this challenge of like, never enough money, you're in a tiny space, you have no room, I'm married, my husband and I like only saw each other on the weekends, and you know, I had a day job, he had a bartending job at night, and just like different schedules all the time. But one of the things that I loved about living in New York was that I was literally like a 15-minute subway ride from the Met. And if you're like in the know, you can call the box office and be like, do you have any study desks available? And these desks are in the family circle way at the top, and they're on the sides. And there's like one chair right next to the railing where you can lean over and see the stage. And then there's one chair next to that that's a little removed from the railing that has a desk and a little lamp. And you can sit there with your score and nerd out, study, just like, and nobody's, there might be like a couple of Juilliard students around or something. And the tickets were like $10 to do that. So Werther had come to the Met, and it was an opera I'd never seen. And I had decided I was going to study it from front to back, because Charlotte is a role that I would just love to play. It's just like the music will just gut you, and it's dramatic, and the mezzo just gets some of the most glorious music. And I was like, I have to go see this opera. Because opera for most of us is not a full-time job. I had like a part-time job working for an insurance agency. And so I had been at work all day doing this job that I, really loathe, and I still loathe it, and I still do it because you got to do a job. And I had gotten off work, and I was like, all right, this is my treat to myself tonight. I'm going to just like go by myself to the Met with my score. I filled my coffee mug up with wine. I snuck it in my bag to the Met, and I went up to the balcony, and like nobody else was around. It was like a Wednesday. There was some people, in the regular family circle seats and stuff, and it was pretty full. This was a new production, and but there was nobody really around me, and I was just really excited to dive in and listen to this. And it was one of those moments where like the voices on stage were so huge and just like giving me that physical vibration. Like I was getting the decibels that I really wanted. And I was up there drinking I took my bra off, put it in my bag, and I was like I was on my couch. I might have even wearing the sweater, so it was like really easy to pull that off. And I just sat there and wept. I sat there and thought to myself, this is exactly where I want to be. It's exactly what I want to do. This music is gorgeous. Then the singing wasn't perfect. Like the mezzo Veronica Simeoni, listen, she's singing at the Met, so she's doing better than I am. But she scooped everywhere, and some of it was wobbly, but man, it was just like full of like zero inhibition. She just, it was her and Vittorio Grigolo, who like somebody told me he was mic'd, which that's sad, but even if he was, like, it was still like really exciting to hear like all of that sound coming at me. And that was a moment where I remember, I'm just never going to forget that. I felt like I was so lucky to pay $10 to just go make the Met my living room for a few hours and get that live performance and get to follow along with my score and just be in my own world. And I just thought like, wow, like not only is that my dream to like be doing that role one day, but like it was just such a dream to just sit there. And as I was sitting there, I was like, this is why you live in a tiny studio. This is why this life is so hard, because of moments like this.
Yeah. Makes it worth it. Totally.
Yes.
What about a performance you have given? Because I have to tell you that every time I have performed with you, or the one time I have performed with you, but every time I've seen a performance by you, it'll happen. We'll have more of them. I promise someday. Every time I see you perform, I feel you. I feel your spirit through every note that you sing, and it feels so intentional and so like you are pouring every ounce of yourself into every note you sing, and there's never a moment of like holding back. And when we were in Italy together, we were just starting our master's degrees, is that right?
We were just about to.
So we were just about to start our master's degrees. I was not technically or emotionally in the same place that you were with singing. And even though I had wanted to do it forever, I didn't really understand what it was that I was trying to do. And my technique was not as lined up as yours. We were just not, I was behind where you were.
She hadn't studied with Marianne yet.
Or I hadn't, that's exactly it. I ended up doing my doctorate with the teacher that Hilary did her bachelor's with, and she transformed my entire life. She was in our last webinar panel, if you were there for that. And you would like give me this like one little thing to think about differently, and it transformed how I performed. And so often in my own performance, I have sort of channeled you and like looked through your lens at how to like, isn't it amazing how much you affect people?
Well, for one, like I had no idea. I had, it's also crazy, like you have no idea the effect that you might have on people. And I think one of the reasons that I am an artist is because, I mean, before I sang, I as a kid, I was in art classes. Like I've actually like rekindled my love for sketching and started a whole new side business sketching, which has been really fun.
So bad dogs.
Thank you. If you guys want a pet sketch, let me know. But I've always, when I was in grad school in Cincinnati, I adopted this nickname somehow, and I guess it's just because it was just like I've always just had no filter. My friends called me the Truth. And I was like, I guess I love that because I think that's really, I mean, that's why, that is another thing about why we sing. And so whenever I'm given a project, and I'm gonna try to talk briefly about two projects that I feel like I was a part of that transformed me, that I think might have transformed my colleagues too. One of which was back in 2015. I got really lucky through a connection and auditioned for and was cast in Bernstein's Mass as one of the street singers. And it was with the Philadelphia Orchestra, and it was with Yannick Nézet-Séguin, who is now like the principal conductor at the Met. And it was before he was at the Met. Nobody really knew him. He was just like this young guy that everybody loved to work with because he is all heart. He loves everyone. All his orchestra players love playing for him. And we didn't really know who he was. And it was, and the other reason I love this project, it was a mix. It was Broadway belters that I've now I get to go see my friends on Broadway sometimes and be like, that's my friend. And they're just like huge stars. But I got to meet this group of people because the piece calls for such a mix of style.
Yeah.
And so there were like 3 or 4 opera singers in there, like really doing what we did best. And then there were like a bunch of musical theater belters. There were some like legit musical theater singers. It was just a whole swath of styles and voices. And so everybody got to shine in their own sort of light. And if you are familiar with that piece, other than just Simple Song, which is incredible, but the whole piece is like, it's like a protest for peace. It's people being like, ah, come on. And at the time, there were protests going on for Black Lives Matter. So back in 2015, obviously, all this has been going on for so long, and still just, falls upon so many deaf ears. But I remember our opening night for Mass, I was walking from the hotel to the Kimmel Center, and I had to walk through a protest to get there. Mm-hmm. And that piece, it is a protest for peace. And my favorite line from it is at the end when all the street singers and everybody are just so mad and they cause the celebrant to break down and throw everything off the altar. We are literally like, we were rocking out, like I was like head banging and screaming, and we were singing the lines, "We're fed up with your heavenly silence, and we only get action with violence. So if we can't have the world we desire, Lord, we'll have to set this one on fire."
Wow.
And how relevant is that to like everything you've seen the past year? And for years and years and years, and it was the 60s,
you wrote
right?
That like in the 60s, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, that it was so relevant. And I made one of my best friends. I don't know if musical theater people might know Brianna Parham. She's one of my favorite people in the world. And she's one of the most talented women of color I've ever met. And she went on to do this review of Hal Prince shows, and she sang Cabaret, and she busted through this like curtain of silver tinsel as a Black Sally Bowles. That's another one where I just was like transformed by her and her power, and she inspires me. But that's where I met her, and that Mass performance, we all became a family. We still have a Facebook group called Mass Family. We try to get together once a year to have a reunion. Like our album was released by Deutsche Grammophon, and we had like a listening party for it, and it's something that will like live forever for us to think back on. And because that piece, not only was brought together so many different styles and personalities and lives, it made such, it was the most powerful thing I've ever been a part of. Yeah. And one more performance I want to talk about was the Joan of Arc that I did it was the last performance I did in February of 2020 with New Orleans Opera. And it was the most difficult thing I've ever done. I didn't think I could do it. I pushed myself so hard out of my comfort zone because I knew I wanted to do it so bad. It was transformative for me when I realized I could do it and that I was doing it successfully. But also, I had a moment during our last performance, or before it, the curtain was still down, and I was set on stage in my first position for when the curtain was going to come up. And there's a women's chorus a little ways away from me. And before the overture started, I ran over to them and just told them honestly, because it was how I was feeling, I want you all to know that this is the biggest opportunity I've ever gotten. It's the most difficult thing I've ever done. And I'm so happy that I can share this with you all because it's such a rare piece. Nobody ever does it. And it's such incredible music. And little did I know that, like, I became Facebook friends with a lot of the chorus women. And like a week after we closed that show, she made a very, heart on her sleeve sort of post. And she said, I'm so glad that I decided to go back and sing with the New Orleans Opera Chorus after taking a break for a couple of years. She said, earlier this year, I had attempted suicide, and being a part of that group, doing that show, gave me a reason to live again. I cannot think of a bigger reason why we do what we do. And I think that's also probably my answer to, like, what's your purpose in society, along with the fact that we can look at people like Amanda Gorman and be like, well, that's why the arts are important. But yeah, those are my big ones that gave me that feeling. And man, that feeling that I got from doing that Joan of Arc carried me through the rest of the year when everything else was canceled, for real. Still carrying me through, honestly.
No doubt. No doubt. Oh, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. You guys are killing me today. Woo. All right, Andrew, what you got?
So when I was a cast member with Holland America Line, we went to, so I was spoiled. It was my very first experience on ships. It was my very first cast experience sailing the world. And it was 8 months in sailing Hawaii and French Polynesia and Lima, Peru. So we would do 30 days out around the islands and back to San Diego. And we did that like 6 times. And then we went down to Lima, Peru and back twice. So I was able to go to amazing places and see amazing things. But when we were in Hawaii one time, we had a double overnight in Honolulu. And so a bunch of us cast members were like, well, let's go, to some bars and get some sushi and like go hang out and just stay out tonight and maybe like, just explore, get lost. So we went out for the night and we just happened to stumble into this bar. And there's this guy just sitting up on this stage, very tiny stage. He had all of his pedals around him. He had his guitar in his hands. He has PA behind him. And he's got these really long dreads, this really blonde hair, like just not a guy that you would think would be up there singing reggae. And he's singing all of his original music, but he's looping everything on top of it. It was like my first experience seeing somebody loop so much stuff at once. And then he was using these vocal harmonizers and all this stuff, and his performance was incredible. And I, like, as soon as I had a beer in my hand, like I couldn't take my eyes off this guy for the whole time he was performing. And it's not like a music that I was drawn to like when I was younger, of like really exploring. Like I've always loved it, but seeing this guy's passion for his music, and his name was Mike Love. So if you get a chance, you should all look him up. But he's just like an island guy. He's out performing in bars and just wherever he can. And he gets on tour sometimes and tours with people, but like he was so good. Like I know we talk about not being perfect, like vocally or instrumentally or whatever, and really emoting everything. But the way he did both was just so like, maybe in my eyes it was perfect. Maybe to him, he was like, I'm not singing the best tonight. Who knows? But I got every ounce of passion from that guy that when I left, I was soaking wet in it. It was just like an incredible experience. And it was probably the most transformative for me, because that's when I knew, like, this guy won't let anything go. Like, everything is coming out of him. And I remember having a masterclass with Dominique when we were doing that for Emerald City Opera, when we did the Elixir of Life. The tenor, he would give master classes, and he was just so obsessed with getting people to emote on stage, not being perfect, not having the most perfect performance, but like leaving everything up there. And I'll never forget, you know, having lessons with him and seeing his performance. And he was another one that was just so passionate about what he did. And I think that's where I really learned how to forget about being perfect and forget about trying to sing with the perfect technique, and try to forget, like, trusting myself that that's all going to be there, but going deeper and letting all this other stuff come out with the performance. Because otherwise your performance is kind of useless. Like, you can see people on stage who are super robotic, and they're just like, you can tell they're just like, you know, it's like super fake. Like, it's a job to them. And, you know, I think that that's what separates a lot of artists that are doing it because it's just always kind of been there, and they're just cool with doing that and at that level, and they're not challenging themselves to really reach and get in there and pull out everything that they're trying to share with the world. And I think it's very easy to tell those performances, but when you see that special somebody on stage that like moves you that much and makes you think about your music and the way that you're portraying, you know, different styles or different feelings, is just things you don't forget. And it's funny because when I looked at that question, I was like, what have I been to that has been the most? And for some reason, this guy popped in my mind right away. And I haven't thought about him for a while, but his performance was so amazing. And it was very unique. Just the setting, you know, just a bunch of people drinking, but everybody's in this bar. And usually when a band's playing at a bar, people are kind of chatting over there and doing whatever, but everybody was just so focused on this guy. It was just so intense. It was incredible. Yeah.
Science has done all this research that I think is so fascinating on the importance of creating a shared space for us to we have to have a shared reality to step into each other's worlds. And so like there's all this research on how we connect to other people, and like when we become instant friends with someone, it's because we share a common sense of reality between us. And I think so often about the space between us as performers and our audience. And as soon as we are in the place where we're like thinking about our technique and like, well, is this 6 to 8 oscillations per second? Like, which no one thinks about. The second we're in that place that we're being so technical and so careful, and so there, it's just a gulf between us and our audience. But then as soon as we are in the moment, as soon as we are portraying reality and we are like feeling compassion and empathizing with our character and bringing them to life, it's almost like we're creating a hologram, like a new reality for them to step into. So it's not like there's a separation between us and them. There's this connection that we are creating that they can choose to be a part of. And so it doesn't matter, like, I don't love country music, but if I'm seeing Dolly Parton on stage, I'm going to feel her soul in my toes, you know, because she gives every ounce of it to her audience. And I love that you said that. I also have this memory of you in undergrad, Andrew. And for those of you who don't know, we were like the same clique. Like Andrew is, we have a group of friends who, even though we go 20 years without seeing each other, we're still best friends. And so that was us. And I have this memory. I don't remember if we were at a party or at a bar, but watching you sing. And it wasn't a performance. It was just a song that like early, like turn of the century us loved. And it was your entire soul in this song. And it was like, you couldn't stop singing it. You couldn't stop, like you couldn't have a conversation with any of us. You couldn't dance. You had to sing this song. You were so compelled to sing this. and I can see it, and I still don't remember where we are. I just see your face singing this song, and I think of that so much with you because you're such a passionate guy in life about everything. That's just kind of who you are. But then seeing you as a musician, seeing you make music is so magical because of that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So what about a performance you've given? Like that one at the bar? Was that the one you were going to talk about?
That was the exact one. You stole it from me and you already told it, so useless.
Sorry.
There's a few. I was part of a project in Denver doing a show at the Aurora Fox. We did a production of Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson. And the guy who wanted to do the show, his name is Ben Dickey, and he wanted to do this show so bad that he got the Aurora Fox to give us a space. He raised money to pay us all to have a run of the show, to get costumes, to everything. Like, this guy ran for 24 hours on the 16th Street Mall to raise money so that we could do this show. And it was, seeing his passion for his art was so incredible. And seeing him acting and the way he put so much emphasis on every little detail, like everything was thought out. He became this character, and sharing the stage with somebody like that was just, you couldn't help but also go to that place and be that hardcore in your character and just give it everything you have. And it makes it so much easier to be on stage with somebody like that, because it rubs off on everybody around him. And we were also passionate about this show, but opening night, he was carrying some playbills backstage and he fell into a trap door on stage, and he actually broke 3 of his ribs, cracked his head. Like, it was hours before we were supposed to open the show. And we all loved his passion for this so much, and we could not do this show without him. I was technically his understudy. Even though I was the band leader in the show, I was still covering him, but I was like, we're not doing this show until you can do it. Like, this was your passion, your project, you know? And so being a part of that show was super important to my development post college. And after that, I went on, after doing a little theater in Denver, I went on to do cruise ships. But when I was done as a cast member, I would see guest entertainers come on board. And so I wrote my own shows. 2 45-minute shows. It's kind of like a mixture of different stuff. So I have, like, you know, some rock music. I have some like R&B soul, like Stevie Wonder, but then I have like Tom Jones and, you know, Les Mis stuff. So it just kind of spans like all sorts of music. And so I developed these shows, and I was doing them for a few years, and I started to kind of think like, well, what am I doing? I'm traveling the world 40 weeks a year. I'm by myself all the time. Like, I feel like I'm not, like, what am I really doing? What's my purpose? Like, does this even matter? Like, these people come to my show because they're just on board, you know what I mean? And it's the entertainment that night. And so I started to kind of think like, is there other projects musically that I'd rather do? Like, I just feel like this isn't making a difference. And after every performance, I would go out and greet my audience. And one time I went out and greeted my audience, and some guy rolls up to me in a wheelchair and hands me a card. And he didn't say anything, but this person pushing him just rolls him up. He gives me this card. He's crying. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took this card, I put it in my pocket, and I greeted the rest of my audience. And as soon as everybody was gone, I pulled the card out, and it was written, it was just one of his cards, because he used to be a pediatric surgeon, but it was his card, and it said, "You may have just saved my life." And I was like, what? Like, I have chills right now, because I was like, how does this happen where I'm starting to question what I'm doing and why I'm doing it? And this guy, just one person, just rolls up and has this amazing transformation in my show, where I don't think I'm anything special. I'm just singing, I'm just having fun, I'm doing my thing. And so a couple days later, he actually found me on my website, and he emailed me a like long message explaining why he wrote that. And he used to be a pediatric surgeon, and he was in a big car accident, and he was paralyzed. And he started to get super depressed. He was like a world chess champion. He was an author, like a published author, had stuff on the New York Times bestselling. He's like this Superman, right? And then this wreck just destroyed his life. And he told me that he was losing hope, and he just wanted to like somebody to stick a needle in him and put something in him to where he wouldn't breathe anymore. Like he just didn't feel alive anymore. And he said that my performance made him want to keep trying and made him want to sit at his piano again and just learn music, because he used to play just for himself, but it was a big part of who he was. And it gave him that much hope to want to keep trying. And it was just like mind blowing. Like we don't understand the reach that we have when we think it's just another performance. You know what I mean?
But you know what, you guys? We've all been in those performances too. Like, I know all three of you well enough to know that you have been through life-shattering things in your lives. You all have. We all have, right? And I know that you have all been transformed by music in those moments. I know you all have. I know I have. I know you have.
Well, I mean, I've been trying to pinpoint like a single story that I could tell for this, and it's so hard to do because I get just this like running loop of like 10 different occurrences that I could equally say like that changed my life. Several of them involve her performing, or going, when we talk about all the time, is going to see Dead Man Walking, the opera Dead Man Walking, and just how just equally like at one point soul crushing and then soul reaffirming, and then like it just makes you question everything about what you believe and what the world is. And there's just going to conduct a choir at a men's prison in Romania, and that divide between performers and audience just disappearing. And there's so many of those where it's like, I know that I feel transformed in these moments, either as an audience member or as a performer. And so I know that if I am really in it, if I am being authentic to this music, to this piece, and how I interpret it, it may not be what the composer intended necessarily. I don't know, but if I'm being authentic to myself and to this piece of music, I know that I am reaching other people. And I've had people come up every time I approach a performance with that mentality. Somebody comes up to me afterwards, and they don't say you sounded great, which I mean that's fine.
They always
cool,
do. I mean, you know, that they line up to tell you sound great.
But the comment that I know that I did my job is when I get the comment, I could feel what you were feeling. You made me feel what you were feeling. And it's like, well, then I did my job. That's what I'm here for. And really, I mean, what we're here to do is, we talk about this all the time, that we hold up a mirror for people. We're here to say, here is some aspect of humanity that you have the capacity to experience. Maybe you have experienced it already, or maybe you have yet to experience this. But this is something that will help you to understand yourself and other people in a way that will bring about empathy and compassion and understanding and connection in such a way that it goes beyond just knowing, but when you feel it, you embody it, it creates such a deeper understanding of what that means to be connected, to be fundamentally human in the same way that somebody else is, even if you totally disagree with them. And I think that's such a powerful tool that artists have at their disposal, and one that I really think is, like I said, is so needed right now. I think artists of all kinds stand at a really powerful position at this moment in time to make a huge change for the better in the world, because we have the capacity to create those connections, to draw those different sorts of people together, and to realize, hey, we're not really all that different. We may believe different things, we may look different, we may sound different, but we feel the same things. So that's what it's all about, whether you feel that transformation yourself or give it to other people.
Let's skip actually to the last question. We're not really cool. Last question. So let's start again with Sid. How do you feel like your voice, how do you view your purpose in society as a singer?
Oh, that's changed a lot this year. I have never considered myself to be political. I am not confrontational. I am an introvert. I'm a singer, you know, like this is none of my business. Was how I felt about things in many respects for a long, long time. And then this year happened, and the world was paying attention in a way that it hasn't in a long, long time. And I started to tell the truth in ways that made me less popular, because I'm a very agreeable human. And that was life-changing. And so the story is, this summer, there wasn't a lot of theater happening. Nothing was happening really, but there was a production of Hair going up in a city called Chemnitz in the east of Germany. And it is unfortunately very famous for its neo-Nazi activity. There's, I'm sure, a lot of other great things that happen there, but that's kind of what it's on the map for. And this theater that does not have an association with this kind of activity, they put up this production of Hair and they cast it completely white. And the internet wasn't having it. You know, I knew about it, but once again, I like to have conversations one-on-one. But once it kind of blew up, and the theater community, which I was so proud to see, spoke up about the fact that they are cutting roles that are literally, I mean, the piece, it's a protest musical. You know, they had to cut songs called I'm Black and Colored Spade and cut the N-word out, which, because they felt totally uncomfortable, because they couldn't tell the story anymore. Because, you know, the criticism of sending, you know, Black soldiers off to war that were also fighting to have equal rights in the United States, they couldn't tell that story. And the fact that, you know, Ish was going down in the United States, and I don't feel like I needed to be a part, or I'm entitled to be a part of it because I'm American, but I feel like it is irresponsible to ignore what's happening in the country of origin of this art form and this piece and these composers and, you know, the setting. To ignore it purposefully is irresponsible. And so as it happens, I didn't speak out against the casting. I spoke out against their statement, which was that they couldn't find any Black people to play the part. And I made a 90-second video where I let them know that all the Black people in Germany are at home and jobless, and that I'd also applied for the role. And so it wasn't true. So that's how things work in this field. You apply, and I don't apply it very often anymore. You know, I've been really fortunate to get calls more and more often, but you know, it was a show, and I knew they were looking for people, and I kind of had an inside tip, so I applied. And so to read that, yeah, it's so hard to find, I was like, yeah, but it didn't have to be me. We were all at home. Like, you could have picked the most affluent, you know, crowd-bringing person you could think of. You pick your dream candidates, you know, because they're at the very, very least 2 roles for people of color in the show. And they probably would have taken nickels and dimes to be on stage in July 2020. So I started having the hard conversations, and my voice is trembling even now, and it is January 2021. And I started having conversations where I hang up and I'm like, whoo, I can't believe I told that truth out loud. And I thought a lot, you know, as the protests were going on in the States, I thought a lot about what my part in it is, because it's like, well, I can't grab a sign. You know, I could write blog posts. I am writing articles. But in many ways, I've learned that my mere existence, my presence in the room is a protest. And so when I put out this statement, knowing that I was alienating this theater, and I was putting them in an awkward position because I knew I was telling the truth, and I was like, this could be my word against theirs. Who knows what's going to happen? They reached out and offered me a contract. And so I was like, this is my moment. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be in a city where I can't go places by myself because Nazis. I don't want to, but this is my protest. I'm going to go be in the room. And it was just about zero fun. Except for singing Aquarius, because that is an endorphin loaded song. And I don't regret it, but it was super difficult. And so I learned a ton of things. I learned that it is professional to tell the truth. Because sometimes we kind of get into this, we're like, I don't want to be unprofessional. I don't want to, you know, but it's also professional to just be real, you know. As a daughter of a Vietnam vet, stepping into a show where there's just a really big disconnect because they felt like it wasn't even necessary to cast a multi-ethnic cast. I was like, well, I'm just going to start saying things because it doesn't make me unprofessional. It actually makes me responsible. And so that's something that I'm still working out the details of all these months later. Like, how can I do this and also be kinder to myself in the process? How can I do this and still be kind to what can sometimes feel like immense opposition, you know, or the enemy, so to speak. And they weren't, you know, I wouldn't say that, I don't want to name the theater or the experience or the team the enemy, but they never did necessarily get it. But I think I needed to be there as a protest because I needed to just be there, be in the room.
Wow. Yeah.
Man, you guys, there's going to be like a lot to unpack this week after the conversation. I'm like, not sure I'm ready for all this. Whoo, man. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my goodness.
Hilary, what do you think? What is your place? Or what is
I gotta follow that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I mean, but that is, it just, I'm just like, I'm on a high right now, just like enjoying this conversation, to be honest with you. This is just like, I needed this. And I think that my answer to what I view as my purpose in society as a singer has changed over years. I started singing because it was fun and I was naturally good at it. And then my parents kind of show ponied me around for a long time. And that felt kind of like my purpose at that time. And then I met Marianne Kyle when I was in high school, and she was like, follow me to this school and you'll get some performance opportunities. And what changed for me was that I grew up in Southwest Virginia, East Tennessee, very rural Appalachia. My family is very conservative. And I have always been and will always be the black sheep. And I wear that badge with pride because it is responsible. And I started feeling disconnect from my family the more I became an artist and found myself. When I, went to college for music, and coming from like a super pretty racist part of the country that's mostly just white, and they're all in their little crazy scary bubble. I was exposed for the first time to the theater world and that diversity, whether it be ethnic and racial diversity or LGBTQ diversity. I got to experience different kinds of people and ways of life that I had never experienced before, and saw that beauty. And because it's who I am, I love to learn about things I don't know. And I'm drawn to people who have struggled. Because what happened to me was that as I became more of who I was, and I think we're all just a product of our own experiences. That's where our perspective comes from. And so I understand that because I was lucky enough to get into theater and to meet people. Artists are everybody, and we're just lucky to have that within us. And so I was immediately exposed to so many different kinds of people and felt like, oh yeah, this is what I want. I want to know these people's stories. I want to know what they've been through. These people are interesting to me. And the more that I sort of became who I was, and in adulthood started recognizing my own beliefs and what I kind of separated as my beliefs versus like the family heirloom beliefs that my family wanted me to have, and separated those two and said, I am me, I am not you, these sort of things. A huge divide was created in my family, and I don't really talk to any of them anymore because I am not religious, and because I identify as like a liberal Democrat. These two things were so offensive to them that they have basically like said, we'll be here when you realize you're wrong. So I found my family, for one, in my husband, whom I met like within the first 2 weeks I moved to New York after grad school. And my musical family, my musical community is my family. They're the people who understand me. They're the people, like, to me, like, understanding my purpose in the world and why I'm here is very, very evident. I feel like I can, but my family are just like, you are a selfish narcissist. You have no worldview. And that to me is just like, what? How? Like, I can't understand why they think my choices make me evil. But I believe that from facing all of that, and within the midst of all of that diversity or all of that controversy in my family, within all of that, my mom developed Alzheimer's and doesn't really know like what day it is anymore, or she has like a 30-second memory. And my dad did a bunch of stuff that we didn't know about until we were adults, and he's a convicted felon now. And so like my family just fell apart. Everything fell apart that I had felt was my support system growing up. And when all of this happened, while this was going on, I was about 30 years old, and I was finishing up my final like young artist program residency at Florida Grand Opera. And I left that residency feeling broken and like I didn't want to sing. I was so depressed and sick from stress that I couldn't sing anymore. My voice literally swole up and I couldn't sing. And there was a period of about 6 months where I was in a really bad state, just from everything kind of culminating. And I met a coach just through trying to, like just trying to get a manager, and this coach worked for this manager and whatnot. So I was going to have a coaching, and I sang, my best aria for him. And afterward he said, what did you like about that? What do you like about yourself? What did you like about your singing? And I was just like, I couldn't answer. And it took me a while to realize that all of the things that sadly from my family had been suppressing that feeling of worth, all of a sudden I was like, he helped me get out of that. And for the next, like, he's still my coach, even though I moved away from New York. He's like insanely special to me, but he and I got really close. And for the next 4 years, we worked at least once a week together. And I found a way to channel all of that pain and all of that emotion. And I fell back in love with singing opera, because there were so many intense emotions I was feeling. I needed to put it somewhere. And I think Stephanie, you and I had talked about this, like back when that was happening, my voice changed. All of a sudden I went from singing Carabino to Santuzza. Like all of this voice came out that I did not know was there. Yeah. I opened up my body more. I started singing with my body more. Like now when I'm exhausted from a stage performance, my mid back will be sore. And that's when I know I've done my job right.
I want to publish on that specifically, because you and I will have a glass of wine and a conversation about this whole thing that you just said, that you just opened up, because it feels really familiar. But I had a very similar experience with a voice shift, and I've talked to a lot of people who have had a similar, like, when your life shifts, your voice shifts as well. And because our voices are the sonic manifestations of our spirits, and when our spirits are free, or when our spirits are more fully themselves, then our voices follow suit.
Yes. I remember a specific coaching. I was rehearsing Desdemona's aria from Rossini's Otello.
Yeah.
And I remember, and it's really hard and really high, and most of the time sopranos sing it. And I remember my coach being like, that anger that you feel toward your dad or whoever, whatever, or that pain that you want for them to understand, I want to hear that. Like, let that pain come in. And all of a sudden, when I focused on that, it went into my body. And it felt like it was coming from a different place. And that year, 2016, was like so difficult, but it just shifted my perspective of why I do it, why I love it. I completely fell back in love with it. I've never been more in love with it than I'm so grateful for that difficult time that led to meeting someone that changed my life, because he had also gone through so much. I really do. People who have been through stuff, man, like, I know it's so hard, but they really are the light of the world.
It forces you to grow. It
does.
forces you to examine yourself and examine what is working with how I'm doing things and what's not working,
Yeah.
and how do I need to evolve in order to grow and to become a better version of myself.
Yeah.
And man, if singing is not a microcosm of that, I don't know what is. I mean, every time you're learning how to use your voice more, it's what you're examining, what in my body, what in my emotions, what in my thinking is helping this, and what is not, what's holding me back.
What's impeding this? What is impeding my spirit from flowing fully and freely through me, and from sharing myself fully with my audience, with the people around me? What is impeding my connection to everyone else?
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Cynthia Vaughn shared a quote, and I don't remember whose quote it was, and I'm so sorry, but she said, that's not a high note, that's your soul.
Right.
And that's just my favorite way to tell my students, like, that was really pretty. I felt nothing,
I remember doing,
cool. Sorry, go ahead.
I remember doing an audition like 3 days after the election in 2016. And I remember like going into that audition, and like, I didn't get the gig, but I remember saying to myself, like, I could be nervous about this, or this could be a cry from the soul. And I made a choice that day that it was going to be a cry from my soul, because I had so many emotions about what had just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Andrew.
Yeah, I think that we're all touching all the same bases. I feel really bad for people who cannot deal with how they feel inside the way we do, because having it bottled up so much all the time has to be miserable. And, we don't need to go pay somebody to like just spew it out and hopefully get a right answer. I mean, I guess we do. We have coaches and stuff like that, right? Vocal coaches and teachers and mentors and all those things. But I think that there's something about singing that, or even just being a musician, being an actor, being an artist, whatever, we're able to put things into a different perspective that is understandable to everybody. And I think that it's important for us to share our experiences, because I think that it helps people heal through their own. Because you think that what you're doing and what you may be saying isn't important to anyone else, but think about all the songs that have changed you. Think about the artists that have changed you, that have, I talk about this in my show, but I think that it's crazy how you can put on a record and you can listen to a song, listen to an entire album. Maybe you hear a song for the first time on the radio. And then when you hear that song again, it takes you back to where you first heard it, where you were, who you were with, what the air smelled like, everything, like what you remember everything. And so music has this power to transcend time. It doesn't exist in music. So you can literally listen to an entire album and it reminds you of an entire section of your life, or an important change, or an important transition, or whatever it is. And even if it's bad, good, whatever, you still have something that can kind of document it in a different way that nothing else is capable of doing. So I really like to think of records and think about recordings and even live performances as it's an audiobook. It's a biography. It's somebody's life. It's a time capsule full of somebody's life. And it's so important that people hear it and it's shared with people because, you know, as we're talking a lot about different politics that have happened, and it's been a crazy year and all this different stuff, but it's important to maybe have these conversations through our music and through our art. It gets us thinking differently. Even if we hear the way we listen to something, or we may see a sketch on a wall somewhere that really like hits home. Maybe we didn't understand something within the political movement that's happening or whatever it is, but it's spelled out perfectly for us in that art or in that song or the way somebody emoted something. So it completely gets different things firing in our heads that maybe we're holding on to so tightly and we don't want to change, and we don't want to. Through music and art, we don't have a choice. So I think it just happens. It happens when you see something or when you hear something or when you watch somebody sing something or play the guitar or whatever. Playing with Andrew, my duo partner's name is Andrew also, but seeing him play every single Friday and Sunday is a masterclass in music. It's a masterclass in just the way he plays something. I'm like, I want to go sing this that way, or I want to, you know, it's watching other musicians and watching other people do their thing. You can apply all those things to our art and into whether we're a musician or we're painting, you know, murals or whatever. And I think that that's crazy how these different types of art can just come together like this. And it's so powerful. We have a very important job, guys.
It's
important.
very true.
Yeah, we do.
So one of the things that we say, I mean, it's right if you go to our website, our first like thing that you see says sing, essential, transformative, powerful. And it really, that's kind of the motto that we live by, is that singing is essential to the human condition. We can't really be fully human without music, without art, and specifically without singing. There are a lot of theories that go along the lines of, you know, that people sang like historically, or prehistorically, humans made music. Humans sang before speech even came along. There's no way to prove that, but I think there's a lot of merit to that theory, and it's so ingrained in us. I mean, our kids, I can't get our kids to stop singing most of the time.
Sometimes at dinner time, we're like, okay,
dinner table's not singing table. And
yeah,
it's so innate to all of us, and we've kind of been indoctrinated to think that you have to be good at singing in order to participate in singing. And that's just the culture in which we live, is that, well, if you're not going to make a living out of it, if you're not going to be a professional at it, then it's not really worthwhile to pursue. And it's so backwards to think, because it's so necessary to who we are, what we are as humans. It doesn't matter if you're going to pursue the path that we all have. This is something that everybody needs to have in their life, whether you are good at it or not. You need to be able to get in touch with that part of yourself that can experience those emotions, that can process
and infuse them into your life as well, to feel like fully experience them and to share them. And to, the biggest thing for me is that music and singing is the most incredible tool for empathy and compassion, and for recognizing other people's strife, and for recognizing other people's experience, because I have no way to live through that. I have no way to live as a man, or as a Black woman, or as somebody who lives in an abusive relationship. I just don't. But when I get a glimpse of that, it gives me an opportunity to empathize and to sort of try on other people's experience. And it makes me a better vehicle for love and for
creating connections.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it certainly does that as we are performing those things. You know, we get to actually go way deep into that experience. But even as an audience member, if you do your job well, your audience members are experiencing that same thing vicariously through you. And so one of the most incredible things when we talk about like being transformed by a performance was, I talk about this all the time, when I saw her sing Suor Angelica. It's like I felt I was a teenage boy. I was maybe 20, 21 or something, but I felt like a mother who had just lost her child. And it's like, how could I possibly feel that feeling? How do I experience that? How is that even possible? But I did. I couldn't explain it, but I felt that way because of the power of that performance. And that's really what we are charged to do, is to bring experiences to people and say, try this on, see what other people are experiencing. This is what is inherent within you, whether you know it or not. And this will help you to understand yourself and to understand other people. And man, do we need that right now or what? Like we have such incredible goals. Hilary, you were talking about between you and your family, and that's our whole country right now has this massive divide that I think, I really believe that we as musicians, as singers, as artists have the power
and the charge
to reach across that divide and to start to heal things. So, well, this has been a pretty amazing conversation. Yeah, Hilary.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, of course.
Only because it just struck me, and I think it's important. For a long time when I was in like the post-college, like managed section of my career, it was very riddled with anxiety and a feeling of competition between me and, the other medsos who were my age, who were, getting jobs that I wasn't, or like there's this whole like, am I enough, like FOMO jealousy thing that can really consume you as a young singer before you've really found your identity. And what I have found a passion for, or that I discovered that I want to do, is as I've become more of a professional singer, and then I'll have like a young artist understudying me or something, to mentor these young singers and to give them encouragement and to reinforce why their voice is special and why their voice is only their voice, and that Susie over here can offer what they can. And also it gave me the opportunity to really open up my insecurities and become really good friends with some of the girls I was competing against. And now some of my best friends are people who we've either been double cast or they got a gig that I didn't or whatever, and these are people that I learn from. I have gotten to the point where I want to watch their performances and see what they did that I liked, that I can tell them that I loved, that I'm going to try out, and that's going to make the music world more empathetic and less it's going to be less of a mirror for all of us when we can look at the other people instead of just worrying about ourselves. And it's also, when you're in an ensemble on stage, everybody's carrying that sort of we're on stage and it's live anxiety with them. But when you're singing with someone, you're sharing a moment and you're both like having to be in that musical moment, it's just like giving a hug to somebody. It's like, I got you. It's like holding their hand, being like, we are in this together. You know what I mean? Like, I have felt such a different shift of perspective of my goals and what my purpose in society is. Like, I really want to I want to mentor now.
Yeah.
I love that. I think you are an amazing person for that.